Students Who Design is a podcast and video series that bridges students and the design industry. By students, for students. Be sure to check out our website, studentswho.design.
This is Students Who Design.
Today we're joined by Ethelia Lung. She currently studies new media design at Rochester Institute of Technology and interned at Google this summer as a product design intern.
This episode covers running a student-led design conference, working between an agency versus a product company, and so much more. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Students Who Design is sponsored in part by Facebook Design. For more resources and information about designing at Facebook, visit facebook.design and check out open roles at facebook.com/careers.
Hi, Ethelia.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
So we're going to start off with what school you currently attend, your major, and where you previously worked.
Okay. I am at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm a new media design and imaging major, and I have previously worked at Grayscale Ltd in Hong Kong and YouTube.
Cool. And how did you get into design?
I actually started making websites when I was 8, and I was very interested in sharing work, whether it was artwork or writing.
This is when you were 8 years old?
When I was 8 years old.
How do you share work when you're 8 years old?
I had very idealistic expectations. I liked to write, and I made like really dumb stories, and I liked pixel art, and like I had Photoshop elements that my dad opened up one day, so I was like photoshopping a bunch of things. I made fan art all the time. It was a weird time, and then it kind of died off. Like the whole website thing died off. In middle school.
Oh, middle school. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're older.
Yeah, because I thought like that's not really a really big career path option. That was what I was led to believe anyway. So I went to CS, or I went into like a more techie major or like path. So I took CS.
This is middle school?
Middle school to high school. So we had to choose our courses, and I decided I would probably like go in a CS path.
And this is a school
in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Okay.
Yeah. So I did the IB. I don't know if you've
Yeah, I did IB as well.
Oh my
It's
god,
pretty brutal.
it was pretty brutal. So I took like math higher level, physics higher level, CS higher
God bless
level.
you. Yeah, I did not do any math science higher level.
Man,
Could
that was
not
hard.
do it.
Yeah, but that's the path that I was taking, and then I realized as I was applying to colleges, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It was either CS or sociology, or I wanted to do something design related. And I knew I wanted something interactive, so I was looking for interactive media, visual communication
So
design.
if you were doing a lot of technical things in middle high school and you kind of closed down Photoshop Essentials, how did you kind of move back to design?
I started doing a lot of poster designs for a lot of the clubs I was in, sometimes website design, so I kind of stuck to it, but not entirely. And I figured I would just redo all of those basics. I mean, HTML and CSS hadn't grown all that much. Like everything was still going through review. I think HTML5 came out when I was here.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
most of the newer stuff is recent.
Yeah, so it's pretty recent. So I still had a really good foundation for that.
Got it. So you applied to RIT.
I applied to 11 schools, and I don't know if I remember them all.
Yeah.
But I applied to like Northeastern, RIT, Washington, U of St. Louis, Carnegie, UCLA, UC Davis, University of Cincinnati, I think, and a couple more. I feel so bad, but that's okay. It was
okay.
it was a while ago. Exactly. Yeah.
So you study new media design at RIT.
Yeah.
So you're now here. And then how did you because there's a lot of different things you can do, motion design, animation design, 3D art. How did you hone in on kind of product or interaction design?
I think it was very much, I came in thinking I would do web, but then I was opened up to the fact that there's something called user experience design, which encompasses more than web, more than mobile. It's more about focusing on how to take user input and create a product, and I think that's what really brought me into interaction design and user experience in general. And I think it really helped that the classes prepared me with a skill set that kind of led me to that, because I always knew that I wanted to work with people, whether it's with a mobile application or whether it's something else.
Do you think that stems from like your original interest in sociology from high
I
school?
actually do think so. People have said that I'm pretty empathetic, and I think that really helps with understanding users. So I've always wanted to be more user-focused, and in general, I want to go into social impact and social issues in the future, and I don't know really what that could be, whether it's a medical startup or whether it's taking a design education or like being a design educator. So it's kind of down that
in between that.
Yeah.
So you're currently the president of the New Media Club.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that organization and
Yeah.
what they do?
New Media Club is an event-based organization that's generally for new media design majors, but we do take in anyone and everyone.
Okay.
It's not really like you have to pay for the club. We just
Or
offer
like
a lot of...
interview for the club or anything like that?
Yeah, we don't have any of
Okay.
that. It's much more of like, if you're interested in the new media, like lifestyle, not really lifestyle, but like everything that new media
For the
is.
listeners who don't know, what is new media?
New media design is a really strange sounding major because
Okay.
like what is new media? But really we prepare ourselves to handle like AR, VR. Back then it was web and mobile.
Mhm.
And it's really about understanding how to problem solve for those areas.
Okay.
So actually we have a very specific toolbox that we are trained to understand how to use. So like Illustrator, you know, the software is Illustrator,
Yeah.
Photoshop, whatever. But also we do a lot of 3D to prepare ourselves for like if we want to prototype or if we want to present ideas
Yeah.
using 3D, we have that skill set. We also do animation. We also go through all the like the art foundations, like drawing 1, 2, 2D design, all of those. So it's a really broad major, and the great thing is I have so many friends who are like, oh, they love branding and typography, they still fit in. They love
Yeah.
illustration, they still fit in. 3D, motion, they all still fit in because really they're using those skills
Mhm.
in order to handle new media in the future.
So the New Media Club puts on events related to new media?
In a way, we like to bring in speakers like alumni all the
Okay.
time, and they kind of tell us about their experience in the industry or like give workshops. We also have a really robust mentorship program, which I think is the most important part
Yeah.
because it is a really demanding major, not gonna lie. Like I've done all-nighters all the time. So we like to group people up in what we call mentor families, where
Yeah.
we have a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, so
Okay.
that you have kind of that little grouping together
Yeah.
and you have that support. Because I know when I came in, I didn't really know anyone and I didn't know who to ask.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really important way to like not only better yourself as a designer, but also get involved with the community. And we have a tight-knit community because of that,
Because of
Yeah.
the families.
because of the families.
So as a member of this club and now president, I think you've seen from both sides how
Mhm.
like the org functions and how an organization like that can be successful or some things that could be improved.
Mhm.
So what would you recommend to a student at another university who might want to start something just like this and
Mhm.
build that tight-knit design culture whenever their school might not be a design school?
Mhm. I think it's definitely important to understand who your like club members might be because for us, we all or most of us are new media designers, and if not, they understand what new media design culture is like. And it's like the type of projects that we do, the all-nighters, you know, all that. So having that initial understanding really helps you figure out what speakers to bring in, what topics to talk about, what workshops they might want to hold. So for example, we don't do much prototyping, like we don't teach a lot of prototyping in terms of tools in class because we are taught After Effects, but we're not taught explicitly like, oh, this is how you use it for prototyping.
Yeah.
So we have prototyping workshops, for
Okay,
example.
so how to like adapt the software to what the industry
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think we want to do a lot more of that this year too. Bring in speakers who might want to talk about like financial UX or speakers who
Yeah.
might want to talk more about like user research. I think those are all very important and not touched upon enough in class.
Mhm.
So it's just understanding what the base people need. Like the
So once you
members'
understand
needs.
what students who want to break into design need, you can
Mhm.
form an organization around meeting those needs.
Yes. And definitely having a good alumni network helps us out a lot
Mhm.
because it's easier to reach out to them and understand like what they wish they
Yeah.
would have known. And I think, let me see. So RIT just started a UX club and they talked to me as well and they were wondering like, oh, I don't really know what to do because, you know, they're in Golisano, which is the computing school.
Okay.
And so I also told them like, you have to understand what they need, like what your users might need. And for them, it's a lot more like, oh, learning Sketch, for example, learning
Yeah.
all the design principles and the tools there. So
Just more so like applying design thinking to an organization.
yeah.
And so let's say, I'm sure you have brought in speakers that might not have been RIT alums, but
Mhm.
were in the industry anyway.
Mhm.
So if a person or a school just doesn't have a strong alumni network,
Mhm.
what is the best way to get in touch with people in the industry to kind of bring them to your school and speak?
Honestly, I think it's about just reaching out and
Yeah.
being friendly. I know I'm personally not very good at it, but I've seen people who are very successful at, you
Yeah.
know, you kind of just have to let your ego go. You kind of just have to talk to people and ask if they'd be willing and interested.
Yeah.
We're very lucky in that we've never had to reach out to
Yeah.
like cold call anyone, because we have such a strong network and they have a network that we can tap into as well. So that also really helps out if you do have alumni who have that network.
And could you tell us a little bit more about Dot at Work,
Yeah.
which is the student-run design conference?
Yeah. Yeah, so Thought at Work is the student-run design conference, and it's run by more than just new media design. It's run by industrial design. It actually started off as an industrial design conference
Okay.
and expanded. We have graphic designers involved. We have people from SOFA, interior design involved. It's very much just getting together a group of people who are like-minded and want to run a design conference that's at a student-level price, but caters to the needs of students.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the past, I think it started back up when I was a freshman. It like had a hiatus for a while. It really brings together not only people who are good at design, like graphic design, industrial design, new media design, but can really speak to a lot of things that we're going through. So we've had like self-help sessions, or like sessions about how we can take better care of ourselves as designers or as students. We've had sessions that are workshops that kind of teach us, teach us how to think in a better way for certain environments.
Okay.
We've had workshops that help with resume building or like presenting yourself. We've had workshops for like really specific things like color. So it's really an amalgamation of a lot of skill sets that we think would be really useful for not only like new media design,
But anyone
also
interested in this field.
Exactly.
I think that's really interesting because like the industry conferences are super cool and there's like very like popular speakers, but the price points aren't there. Or it's like the location's
Oh my
not there.
gosh, yeah.
So like your ability to kind of bring that, just do it yourself is like super admirable, and I think that'd be really interesting to have across the country.
For sure,
Yeah.
and actually we've had people from Canada come over, like students from Canada. So
that's awesome.
it's a really great conference, and like I can't take a lot of credit for it either because there are so many people involved in making it. I was involved in website design and like all of that, but I've had friends in the title sequence who've worked on speakers, who like really organize the logistics of the event, and I think it's a really valuable experience no matter what, where you are. So even if like you started one at Cornell, I'm pretty sure it'd be an awesome experience. Yeah.
So now I want to touch upon your professional exposure, your career. So to start off with, how did you get your first opportunity, your internship? Because in design, you need a strong portfolio to get a position or work, but you need work or a position to get any sort of portfolio.
Yeah. No, that's definitely really true. So I had an internship my first year, and the way I got it was I had done a few side projects in the past in high school, and I kind of pulled from that.
Okay.
But I also tried my best to pull from like whatever projects and process work I had from the semesters.
So like you took those like you try to actually make a portfolio piece out of the class projects.
And more importantly, I made a portfolio. Like I built a portfolio website just so that I could showcase some sort of work.
Yeah.
What helped out was that I think I was taking a web dev class at the time, and I was already really proficient at web development, like front end at the very least. So I was kind of like doing my portfolio anyway, and just showcasing the fact that yes, I can make a portfolio and I can kind of design all that kind of thing.
But like, okay, so you can sell yourself as a designer who codes.
Kind of, but also I just tried to push all my process work on it. And I think the thing is with portfolios, they really do get you in the door, but the interview is what like gets you into the internship itself. So I think I'm very lucky in that when I cold called around 5 agencies in Hong Kong, 5 to 7, 3 of them did answer back. 2 of them wanted to talk to me further, and 1 of them actually talked to me over like a phone interview. And I think that stood out to me as well.
Okay.
He asked me a lot of questions about like what kind of styles do I use, what is my process, because at Grayscale, which is the agency that I was at, they were very much about the Grayscale process, which is understanding design and development.
Okay.
And I just really enjoyed their mission, and I really resonated with it. So I made sure to kind of touch on that when I was talking.
So it's more so you showed your portfolio that you have potential in the interview to show that you're passionate about the company itself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the thinking was really important too. I put a lot of thinking, like I wrote down a lot of my thought process in my portfolio. Personally, I don't do that anymore. I try to like limit as much text as I can, because when you're scrolling, like that's the most annoying thing with your portfolios, unless you really write a really good case study. But I made sure to showcase that.
And what was the kind of work you were doing at Grayscale?
I was doing both understanding work, which is kind of user research, competitive research, IAs, personas, and then I did a lot of like wireframing and design.
PNI is information architecture.
Information architecture, correct. I was there for 2 years, and my first year I was kind of doing a lot more of the visuals and graphics.
So you took time off school to work at Grayscale?
I was there for 2 summers.
2 summers,
yeah,
okay.
My
I was
bad.
like, that's cool. You took 2 gap years.
Oh man, I don't know what I would have done. Like, oh, yeah. Anyway, yeah, my first year I was very much. I still did a lot of the user research and work there. And I really should say competitive research because we didn't have a lot of budget for user research, but we did get to, or I did get to do a lot of hands-on work throughout the process up until development. And then my second summer there, I did more of the wireframing and like conceptual stages because there was a visual designer as well, and got to work a lot with that.
And so when you went back the second time, what were some things you did differently than your first time? Because I think there's probably students who go through maybe multiple internships and it's just 10 weeks of the year and then another 10 weeks of the next year, and so you might like forget what mistakes you made or how to improve. But since you were in the same kind of company, in the same area, what were some things you did differently?
I think when I went there for the first year, I did bring a lot of like the design process with me from school into Grayscale, and I think that helped them a little bit as well with their process. And I took bits of their process into my work at school. I learned a lot in that year, and then I kind of just like I cumulatively like applied into what I was doing my second year or second summer.
So you went from Grayscale to YouTube. What do you think were the main differences in the process of like evaluating a candidate or just interviewing for an agency versus a strong product company?
Let's see. Quite honestly, when I interviewed for Grayscale, it was over like video call.
Okay.
So I actually saw the person, and I kind of saw a little bit of the office, and the questions were very similar. I'll be honest, and that depends on every interviewer. I was asked about why I was into design, why I did this project, like talk me through a project. And for Google, it was the same. I got a phone interview, no video, and I was asked, why did you go into design? And like, can you talk to me about this project? Kind of that kind of thing. It wasn't all that different, but the difference is that I had grown so much as a person from those 2 internships that I had more to talk about, and I was more sophisticated in talking about it.
Got it. So you could communicate your process better.
I could communicate my process better, and I was more confident in communicating like why I wanted to do design, what part of design was important to me, and why I did certain things. So I don't remember how I interviewed my first year for Grayscale, but I think I was very much like, oh, I think this, or like I was kind of like held back. But you kind of get to know who you are as a designer as time goes on, especially with the work experience. Grayscale was a 7-person agency, so I got to see a lot more. I got to go from understanding to development and like see that handoff. Whereas, at Google, you kind of are part of the cog, but at the same time, you learn a lot either way.
And so now looking back on both experiences, which do you prefer, more agency work or product work, and what were the kind of pros and cons of both?
I don't know if I have a really strong preference because they're both so good for any sort of student of design. So agency let me see a lot of the process, and you get a lot of diversity in projects. So I was going from like knitwear to like financial companies to like I made a website for a wine company, and I designed a website for a university, like an architecture program that was local. So it's a lot of variety, and I think you don't get that in product because you're working on the same product. However, in product, I love the fact that you can iterate based on like user research, and I feel like you own the work more. Because in agency, you kind of just pass it off, and then it's kind of gone unless they have a retainer.
Whereas in product, you kind of get the numbers back and then figure out a game plan.
And you kind of have a baby that you can see through its stages, and you can iterate on everything based on the research. It's very much more robust in terms of a system as well. Like at Grayscale, I think it's still a system that they're trying to figure out and like improve upon all the time, whereas at Google, they have a very set way of doing things now. Like you can't really change that very easily. So I guess if you really wanted to be a really big, not manipulating, but like if you wanted to be able to influence the culture and the process of an agency or a startup, that would be a little bit easier than if you were in a product company.
Because it's so established.
Exactly.
And what would you recommend to like a student who's in their first year of school, or like maybe someone who's trying to switch careers for like their first gig? So I know you mentioned that the fact that you made your own portfolio, like you showcased that, okay, I can code, but then also it was a place for your process. Is that something you recommend to other people who are trying to transition into this field as well?
I think so, and I think it's gonna vary for everyone, but basically you have to figure out how to sell yourself. If you are a first year, why are you valuable? Why are you worth their time?
Yeah.
If you're a transfer into the industry, why are you like what skills can you bring in that are really useful? Like, I don't know, if you were in business, what makes you an eligible candidate or a good candidate for this position in design? Like why should they consider you over someone who has a lot of design experience? It's really about selling that. And if the best way to sell that is to make a portfolio, like design and dev portfolio, then do that. If the best way is to like do redesign projects, like, you know, those ones, those ones. Then by all
some of
means,
them are actually like, they go viral, or they're actually a way for you to get some sort of work.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of controversial too, because
Slightly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's not a lot of, I think people who do redesigns neglect the product thinking that sometimes goes behind it.
Exactly. And if you do unsolicited design or redesigns for a huge product, like, you're more likely to run into things that everyone at the product company has already thought about. Like, there's no way they didn't think about what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So you really have to make sure your thinking is clear and you know that you're making assumptions and you're not, you know, at the product company and you're not trying to say, no, this is better.
Like all these designers are not intelligent.
Exactly. Like, you don't want to step on people.
So we're going to ask you a couple of questions that we ask every single guest on the show. And this is just to get an idea of what everyone thinks about similar topics. So the first question is, having the experience that you do, there's probably some things you feel like the design industry doesn't quite understand about the student design community. And we're wondering if you can speak a little bit about that.
I actually, on the contrary, think that they know a lot more than we think they know, because we have a lot of alumni out there.
Yeah.
And they also disseminate information. Like, they're pretty much on top of what we're doing because they have to be. They have to understand like what's happening.
So I would say more like a student design community as all students in design, not necessarily just RIT, but like anyone who wants to get into design as a student versus anyone who designs in the industry. And if you think there's a disconnect there or not.
I mean, I can't really speak for the industry, so I'm making like great assumptions here, but I don't think they realize how many like small design communities we have and what we do. Like HH Design, I have no idea how known it is in the industry. I have no idea.
No, that's true.
But and also like they don't know a lot about the stuff we do on campus, like really small
the involvements
things.
that you might have.
Yeah. Thought I worked, for example. I'm pretty sure like if I said thought at work, everyone would be like, "What? You guys do this conference?"
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. So a lot of like small things that design students are actually involved in, I think that takes them by surprise because they don't realize that
These
we
things
do
are happening.
these things. Yeah.
So you have a lot to manage from, whether that's school, work, the 1,000 hours that you're trying to put into design. How do you try to stay on top of it all?
I try to keep myself really motivated. I mean, design motivates me in general, but taking a break from that also really helps. So I know a lot of my fellow students take courses like editorial or quilting or calligraphy, just kind of to get out of their own minds. Do something with your hands. Like, we are so digital, at least in our like field, that we forget that there's a whole like physical world out there. We have to be inspired by that too. And also sticky notes help. At one point I was emailing myself a to-do list every day. I currently use a spreadsheet because I'm like hyper organized. But just figuring out a way for yourself to like stay on top of things is good.
There's so much noise in the industry, whether that's a Medium article about like 10 ways to get into UX or someone's blog post or someone else's weekly newsletter. How do you manage to kind of filter the content as to what's relevant to you and what is just noise?
I think it's really important to read everything with a grain of salt. Honestly, I follow a lot of design leaders and things like that, but you have to read everything you can and understand from their perspective, but also you yourself get a lot of experience from the industry. Whether it's talking to people who are closer to you in terms of age and like ability and everything and see how their experience went, or also just reading about like Julie Joe's experience.
Yeah.
Like there's so many articles that you kind of have to be critical about it, because I've seen way too many like, these are 12 things you can do, and you will definitely be like in UX. And honestly, and this is going to be so controversial again, but like I really dislike seeing the whole, I interned at this place this summer and this is what I learned, because it's going to be so different for everyone. Like it's really good reflection for yourself, but to frame it as something that everyone will
go through, or like this is what you should do.
Yeah, like that's kind of like iffy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find your own person.
And do you have any mentors or people that you follow that stay inspired, or things that act as pseudo mentors, like books, articles, and more?
Mm-hmm. I think aside from following design leaders and people who really inspire you, whether it's actual agencies or people within agencies, because you can look people up. I have like a super cheesy answer, which is there's this quote in Chinese, 三人行必有我师焉, which basically means, or directly translated is, when 3 people walk together, my teacher is amongst them. And you can essentially learn from everyone around you, which is why New Media Club's mentorship program is so important for everyone. Because you can learn as a mentor, you can learn as a mentee. Everyone around me inspires me in some way, shape, or form, whether it's people who are really good at illustration but maybe not so good at UI UX. That's still really valuable information and like skills to learn from. Their passion for their work is inspiring, and I just think passion is really inspiring.
Such positive vibes everywhere.
I love positive vibes.
And we've talked about what you've done and how you've gotten here.
Mm-hmm.
What is next for you?
I am hoping to be in San Francisco or on the West Coast somewhere as a UI UX. Can we redo that?
Yeah, we can redo it.
Yeah.
We actually have to switch to other questions. I forgot.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, as a design leader on campus, I'm sure there's a lot of people that come to you asking for advice.
Mm-hmm.
What are some actionable pieces of advice that you would give to these people or listeners right now?
Mm-hmm. So there are 2 pieces of advice. The first is I had a lot of pressure back when I was trying to go into design, where people were saying design isn't a good career for you because everyone around me was going into business, law, medical school and stuff. But it's very much about really fighting for what you think is worth doing. And for me, it was worth being a user experience designer, being someone who could influence in a visual but also like thoughtful way. And that's what design is to me. The second is that I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration between designers and devs and like engineers, just because we all need to understand where each other is coming from. A lot of times I see that engineers design for their software, not for their users, and I think it's really useful to have, like, for example, a user experience designer who can inform them of a lot of design decisions. And visual design-wise, there's also that. But it's also the same on the other side, because as designers, if we want to implement, or at least for our field, if you want to implement anything, you do need to have a developer on the other end, or someone who's implementing your designs. To understand their frame of reference is also important. That's why our major, at least, is very strong on programming, and that's why I try to keep informed with like how to hand off assets well, whether it's through Zeppelin or another software, or whether it's really communicating with the developer from stage 1, which you should do anyway.
So we talked a lot about what you've done and how you've gotten there. And our last question is, what's next for you?
I would like to be an SF or the West Coast as a user experience designer, whether that is in mobile web or whether that's kind of taking it further than that, designing experiences for social issues. I am hoping to be at Google this summer, or hoping to be at a product area at Google for full time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Students Who Design is written and produced by Sahil Koja and Omar Abdul Rahim. Visit our website, studentswho.design, for more information.